As I talked about with the Seattle Seahawks, every season 32 teams set out to try and ultimately reach the promised land, and that is winning the Super Bowl and hoisting that Lombardi trophy. 32 teams try, 31 teams fail. There ultimately can only be one winner, and this year's winner ended up being the New England Patriots. Again, for the fourth time in their organization's history. And you look at this team in 2014 and to see where they ultimately got, you'll wonder in a way how it really happened. Because this was a team early on in the season that a lot of us were talking about just how bad they looked and just how old they looked and just how washed up they looked. And in particular, Tom Brady and the lack of explosiveness on offense and the lack of big-time difference makers on defense. I mean, this was a team, and when we talk about that 2-2 start, at no point in time in those first four games did the New England Patriots look impressive at all. At no point in time did they give you any real hope for confidence. You had that loss to Miami in the opening week. In week 3, they barely beat a very bad Raiders team. And then they got housed in week 4 by Kansas City on Monday night. I mean, that was terrible. I mean, you know what's bad when people are asking Belichick if it's time to reevaluate the quarterback position. Now, sometimes we are maybe predispositioned to overreact and be caught up too much in the here and now. But you could start to see the cracks forming, and you could start to see where things were going to maybe start to fall apart. But as often is the case, maybe we do too much to try and discredit the New England Patriots. We underrate the New England Patriots, and we don't acknowledge nearly enough just how well-run of an organization and football team they ultimately are. And we got too caught up in the moment, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself specifically, but I know I'm damn near not the only one, believing that this team was cooked and this team was done, and forgetting all of the years of previous history that clearly indicated that this team would be just fine. It sometimes takes them some time to get going. They got going, that's for sure. And maybe we should have seen this coming. Because man, oh man, after that game against Kansas City, this was an entirely different team the rest of the season. They went 10-2 the rest of the way, ended up going 12-4, winning the AFC East, earning themselves home field advantage throughout the AFC playoffs, which they put to good use, beating the Baltimore Ravens in that divisional round game 35-31. And the crazy thing about that is you're talking about a New England Patriots team where not once but twice in that game they found themselves down by 14 points. A game for all intents and purposes they had no right winning. They had every right to lose, and yet they ultimately found a way to win. One team's choke is another team's miracle, and in some ways you could talk about that as being a sort of miracle. Talk about all the gadgets and the gizmos and the hooks and the tricks and everything else. But at the end of the day, man, you talk about the New England Patriots. They found a way to get the job done against a team that matched up really well against them in the Baltimore Ravens, an experienced team, a championship team. They got it done, and then they went and they steamrolled the Colts 45-7 in the championship game. And then, of course, a lot of the talk heading into the Super Bowl was about Deflategate. We're talking about the New England Patriots, and we're talking about fucking footballs. And what a shame it is. And we can sit there and talk about the fact that, yeah, it's because they're the Patriots, and that's why we're talking about it. But yeah, it's because they're the Patriots. That's why we are talking about it. It's such a shame because this is an organization that has done so many good things over the years. This is an organization that has done so many things the right way. And this is an organization that if it's not for a once-in-a-lifetime catch by David Tyree and another great catch a few years later by Mario Manningham, may very well already have 5 Super Bowl trophies under the Belichick-Brady regime, going for number 6, not going for number 4. I mean, this is an organization that over the past 15 years has made it to 9 AFC championship games. They have made it to now 6 Super Bowls, won 3 of them before this year. I mean, this is like San Antonio Spurs type stuff to an entirely different level almost. This is just incredible. And this is what we should be talking about. We should be arguing about whether or not Belichick is the best coach of all time and talking about whether Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. Not talking about Spygate and talking about deflated footballs and talking about cheap tricks that they use in their formations with the eligible versus ineligible receivers. But this is the type of shit that we get with the New England Patriots that sometimes is so damn frustrating. And it should be like that, and it's sad, and it's a shame. But we get to Super Bowl 49, And at the end of the day, the great thing about Super Bowl 49 is that it felt like a Super Bowl. This felt like a mammoth monster matchup with the two best teams in the National Football League. This felt like that heavyweight clash of the Titans, and that's what we got. We got a great game. We got a classic game. We got a game, especially with the finish that we got, that we will be talking about for many years to come as one of the truly great games from beginning to end in the history of the Super Bowl. There's no question about it. And a lot of credit goes to the New England Patriots because they found a way to win a game that they flat out should have lost. That's championship stuff. That's what champions do. That's what champion teams do. That's what championship players do. Championship coaches do. And the New England Patriots are definitely all of that and so much more. After going to 3 straight AFC championship games and the last 2 not being able to get the job done, getting it done this time, getting to the Super Bowl, and then finding a way, somehow, some way, to win that game. And you know, what a fitting way for them to win that game. Tom Brady leading them on 2 touchdown drives in the fourth quarter, to come from 10 down to go up 4, to be able to sit there and be in a situation where it's 2nd and goal at your 1-yard line. They've got Marshawn Lynch. They've got Russell Wilson. And you've got an undrafted corner from West Alabama named Malcolm Butler who comes in and saves the day. That is the New England Patriots. That is the consistency of the system. That is what the Patriots are all about. Finding those guys that step up and make those big plays in big spots that you maybe have never heard of before and may frankly never hear from again. But what were some of the big keys that made the difference for the New England Patriots in 2014? I really think you have to point to 3 major key differences from previous years. First and foremost, they had Gronk healthy for an entire season. It's something they didn't have at their disposal last year, and they had it this year. That made a huge difference. There's no question. Rob Gronkowski is the best tight end in the National Football League. I don't think anybody with the brain disputes that. And you could see the type of difference that he made on that offense, opening up everything for everyone else on the outside and giving Tom Brady that type of big-time threat. Having that all season long made all the difference in the world for the New England Patriots. And you also have to look at them going outside of the box and admitting that the way that they've always done things isn't always the right way to go, and understanding that they needed to change up something and going out and getting aggressive in free agency for a change and bringing in guys like Darrelle, Revis, and Brandon Browner, knowing that for years they had tried to address the corner position and largely had failed to do so effectively. They needed to go out and plug this big hole because they were anticipating they were going to need to stop offenses like the Denver Broncos, maybe the Indianapolis Colts. They needed to get better, bigger, more physical at the corner position, and that's exactly what they did. And that made a huge difference, especially when it came to Super Bowl 49. While on the one hand, the Seahawks really weren't going to expect much out of Baldwin and Curse anyways, and that was just part of the plan, part of the way it was going to go, it was just startling how little separation those guys could get against Revis and Browner, in particular Revis. I mean, they just couldn't get separation. They just couldn't get open. And that made such a big difference. It allowed so many other things to fall into place appropriately for the rest of that Patriots defense, even with some of the injuries that they had, especially losing Gerard Mayo early in the year. I mean, and then you got to look at that late season addition of LeGarrette Blount. Here's a guy that was with the Steelers, is kind of toiling away on the bench behind Le'Veon Bell. He walks out. He gets cut, and then magically the Patriots are there to swoop up and get him, and he made a big difference for them, especially in the playoffs. He made a huge difference. He helped establish a physical identity, and while he didn't do much in the Super Bowl, in a lot of ways they might not get to that spot without a LeGarrette Blount. This was a team that's incredible, man. You're talking about a former 6th-round pick out of Michigan who was his second fiddle, so to speak, to Drew Henson at Michigan. You're talking about a Bill Belichick who was once a failure as an NFL head coach with the Cleveland Browns. Now these guys have 4 trophies, and they damn near, you could argue, should have 6 of them. What an incredible run for this New England Patriots team. Now, was this the last gasp? Was this the last hurrah? I guess we'll find out come next season or in the next couple of seasons to come. But you know, at the end of the day, I guess we should never dismiss the New England Patriots. If there's one lesson that we've learned from this 2014 NFL season, it's not to dismiss the New England Patriots until they've shown us that they're done, until we know that they're done. Because we could think we know, but we really don't know. So what does this team need to do in the offseason to give themselves a chance to be back in this position, to be able to potentially repeat and win Super Bowl 50? Well, they need to get better in some key areas, most notably to me on the offensive side of the ball. They need to get younger and more athletic on that offensive line, in particular at the tackle position. Especially early on in the season, they really struggled to protect Tom Brady. As long as you've got Tom Brady's your guy. You got to keep him upright. You got to be able to protect him better than the Patriots did, especially early on in the season. They could just use youth. They could use depth all along that offensive line, in particular, I believe, at the tackle position. They also need some help at the wide receiver position. Yes, Edelman had a big Super Bowl. Amendola made some nice plays in the Super Bowl. LaFell had his moments in 2014. But so much of that passing game is still based around Gronk, and they still lack that big-time vertical difference maker in the passing game. That's something that they really need, something that LaFell and Edelman and Amendola just don't give them. They're good fits maybe for that short passing attack, but you can only rely on that short passing attack for so much. At some point in time, you have to be able to stretch out opposing defenses, not just horizontally, but vertically. The Patriots got the horizontal part down, the vertical part, not so much. They need a big-time difference maker on the outside. They need a guy that can take some of the pressure off Gronkowski and can open things up even more over the middle and outside for guys like Edelman and Amendola. They also need to get something more at running back, too. I mean, how much longer can you sit there and continue to count on a LeGarrette Blount? And then you look at other guys like a Jonas Gray or James White, or Shane Vereen. They're role players. They've got a nice role, but they really lack that big-time difference-making back. And as you transition to the tail end of Tom Brady's career, I think that's something that he's always frankly lacked, and that's something that he desperately needs in that system. They might not address it, but I see that as a big-time need. I also think they need to get younger and better in that secondary. Because you saw Chris Matthews of the Seahawks, an undrafted player who spent time in the CFL, have over 100 yards and a touchdown on this secondary. Once you got past Revis and Browner, it wasn't that good, especially at the corner position. Kyle Arrington got eaten alive in that game. They need to get more depth at corner. They need to get more depth at safety. They need to get more talent at both positions. This is a Patriots team that sees the opportunity and sees their moment and made it happen. They found a way to win a game that they frankly should have lost. And now they have, most especially, their own special place in history, being one of the few organizations in NFL history to win 4 Super Bowls with a coach that joins a very, 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 very small list of coaches that have won 4 Super Bowls, and the only other guy, is Chuck Noll. And Tom Brady joins a very exclusive list with only 2 other quarterbacks, Terry Bradshaw and Joe Montana, for quarterbacks that have won 4 Super Bowls. Will they get to number 5? Can they go back-to-back? I guess only time will tell. I think everybody can agree that that window for winning a championship is going ever smaller by the year. And maybe this is the next season is where that opportunity, that window finally slams shut. We'll see. But congratulations to the New England Patriots. Again, every season, 32 teams begin their journey, and only one of them can sit there and say that they are the world champions. And this year it was the New England Patriots. And minus all the bullshit and minus all of the other crap, they get my props and my congratulations. Job well done.